I'm glad that my late arrival has at least provided some comic amusement for you all. And apologies again. Never take the DLR, always take the Jubilee line. Much, much better. Following on from Ashley at Ipsos, I wanted to take a slightly different tack and explore things that perhaps the polls and the opinion surveys aren't telling us. In the UK, I think quite rightly, we've devoted quite a lot of time to opinion surveys. We now have an evidence base we can be rightly quite proud of and leading internationally in that respect. However, polls and opinion surveys have their natural limits. In particular, they tend to isolate the individual. If you've ever taken part in one of these, you'll be caught on the phone, on your doorstep, on the street corner or in front of a computer. Very much as an individual acting on the spot. Of course, life isn't really like that, and as much as we're loath to admit it, we are influenced to a great extent by those around us, either our friends, our peers, our family, social commentators, the media, politicians, all of which represent the social forces that influence and mediate our behaviour. So for my 5 minutes, I wanted to touch upon one or two recent studies, notably not from the UK, that are potentially interesting and might set the scene for future policy. The first of this is by Chris Stackis, who's a medical sociologist, whatever one of those is, operating out of the Harvard Business School, and has been looking at the concept of 3 degrees of contagion, which in effect means that we're not only influenced by our own opinions and our own actions, we're not only influenced by those around us immediately, a first degree kind of detachment, but also our friends' friends and our friends' friends' friends. It seems to dissipate at about 3 degrees of contagion, which is interesting. This applies to all manner of social phenomenon. The idea being is that ideas, beliefs, behaviours can be, under the right set of circumstances, as contagious as viruses and spread in various different ways. So, for example, if one of your closest friends becomes clinically obese, or one of their friends' friends becomes clinically obese, your chances of becoming obese rapidly go up. Ditto with smoking. If your immediate spouse or your immediate best friends quit smoking, your chances of quitting smoking go up by about 67%. And this also extends to happiness. Again, the mechanisms are quite different. It doesn't apply to your neighbours or your immediate spouse, bizarrely. But again, if your friends and your friends' friends are all happier, smile more, your chances of declaring yourself happy also increase. This extends to environmental beliefs as well, which is potentially interesting in terms of how policy might target not just individuals, but communities, either on an area-based basis or on a community of interest-based basis. And the key lesson, again, if you want to lose weight, is not only join a gym, socialise with the gym's members, and you stand a far greater chance. This has at least 2 important implications for policy. First of all, it challenges Gladwell's tipping point theory. Gladwell, as part of his central thesis, said that ideas spread through a small number of mavens, individuals who catalyse behaviours and spread them to the rest of society. If Christakis is correct and Gladwell is wrong, actually, it doesn't matter about those few mavens. It matters that there's a series of interconnected individuals through which ideas, beliefs, behaviours can all spread. The second one is the power of social norms. This is one of the main mechanisms by which Christakis claims that these things spread socially. So again, on the case of obesity, the reason that you become obese if your friends become obese, or rather your chances of becoming obese go up, is that the people around you, their body shape changes. Therefore, your perception, your reality of what constitutes a normal body shape changes, and therefore your behaviour changes in turn. This can also be applied to the environmental sector. Again, if your neighbours all have solar panels, or the recycling service has bright orange bags, all of which get laid out on one day, there's a visual cue, a social norm telling you how you should behave and what you should be conforming to. So this is potentially interesting, again, in terms of community level action. So rather than individual action, with the odd solar panels scattered around the UK, can we get a cluster of these things in a neighbourhood, in a ward, in a town, and what effect would that have on the social spread of environmental behaviours? Are you asking a question, John, or are you telling me 1 minute? Okay, excellent. Thank you. In which case, I'll rapidly go on to 2 other studies that are briefly interesting. The first is the distinction between social norms and market norms. We simultaneously live with both of them. Sometimes we have a financial transaction going on and we're paid or pay people for activities. Sometimes with friends and neighbours, we don't pay for them. They're based on a social kind of contract. Interestingly, when these 2 things get mixed, funny, bizarre things happen. And I think this is particularly relevant given that in the recycling world, we're now moving away from sticks, allegedly, towards incentives. And what that might do if we monetize recycling. And again, I have no particular position on this. I think it's a very interesting kind of route to take. But in the case of several studies, when you replace a social norm, i.e. I should recycle because it's the right thing to do, with a market norm, i.e. I'm going to get paid for it, the market norm dominates, destroys the social norm, and it's very hard then to return back to the social norm. So the worry, I think incentives for recycling are interesting. The worry is that once you initiate that, you have to continually incentivize it, otherwise you don't let the social norm take back over again. And then finally, with my remaining 10 seconds, research again in the States by Dan Costa and Matthew Kahn, which has been looking at the idea of nudges in California. They've been studying the impact of sending out various nudges via bills to try and get people to lower their energy use. Again, this is following on from the work of Thaler and Sunstein, which said that nudging was a jolly good thing to do. Interestingly, it works very well with Democrats and liberal voters, and I use liberal in the sense of in the American context. It doesn't work well with Republicans, who actually buck the trend. So while the Democrats reduce their energy usage in response to the nudge, the Republicans either reduce it minimally or stick two fingers up to whoever's giving the message and actually increase their energy use, which again is very interesting in terms of, again, not discounting the power of nudges and our ability to look and explore what they can do, but again, the potential for unintended consequences or for nudges to work differentially on different social groups is clearly key. All of which, I think, as a conclusion, demonstrates the need for an appreciation of social forces as well as individual behaviour and psychology, and for a rapid and immediate change in the UK research-based focus away from individual behaviours towards something we haven't hitherto studied very much, which is social forces of contagion. Thank you.
Thank you.